Right, Mike. Today's episode is all about sales. Let's see how much of a good salesperson you are. Sell me this pen.
Are you looking for a pen?
No?
Then we have nothing to talk about.
What's the first thing you think of when someone says they're a salesperson?
If I could go back again when I was 20 years old or 16 years old, if there is one thing I would learn or be better at, would be sales.
A salesperson is someone that is there to listen, understand the problems of the person you're in front of, and then support and guide to a solution.
I want to see who you are, I'm not interested in what you are selling. Because if who you are is the wrong person, whatever it is you're selling will still be wrong.
Right in front of this camera for me.
Yeah.
There we go.
Lee, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, Mike. How are you?
Good, good. Good to see you again.
Pleasure as always.
Good to see you, Taylor.
I have to edit that out now.
Well, why, man? Yeah, you're part of this, you know? We like you. What do you mean you have to edit it out?
It's good, and we are in the new studio, which is amazing. Honestly, the sound is so good. Like, it feels so good. By far the best studio I've ever been in. But part of that, goes towards you and your team. So for those listening, we're actually recording this podcast in a fridge.
Well, thanks to Taylor. He's moved it up a few notches, and this was his request to make it as soundproof as possible and as unique and as perfect as possible, because he's got some very important clients coming here.
Yeah, and it goes to show, I always talk about the power of relationships, and I think I'll talk about it in today's episode because we're going into sales in today's episode. But it just goes to show what relationships can lead to, right? So obviously we met, however many years ago, we've done loads of business together. And then through that relationship, we kind of just found out that actually a fridge is a great way to build a insulated, soundproof podcast studio, right? So our relationship has led to you building our custom-built podcast studio, which is random as hell. But hey, that's what sales is, right?
Correct. Here we are, looking good. I'm looking forward to this, actually.
Have you had any wins of the week?
Well, I'm alive, I'm well. That's the greatest win of all. It's been a very long, difficult summer, and I've learned a lot this week, especially when it comes to working with larger companies. When the bills are like 150, 250 grand per job, and you learn a lot from that. It's been a learning curve. I'm enjoying that. It's been painful in certain ways, but it's good. It's part of the journey.
Good.
It's the next step up. You get exposed to new, difficult things you have to deal with on a daily basis.
It always comes with challenges.
Yeah, it always comes with challenges.
I was really struggling to think of a win this week. I don't know why.
Because you've been on holiday for too long.
I was away, so that did contribute. But I think for me, just recording in this new studio is a win for me this week. This is really exciting.
I can't stress it enough how much I look forward to this moment.
Yeah,
sitting face to face with you and that guy over there who's
going
to make it.
Let's not give him any.
Who's going to make it? Who's going to make it the best podcast in the world?
He doesn't deserve any more credit, so let's just leave it there. So this week, Mike, we are talking about sales. So I think this is quite exciting because I think for those that know me and you know that sales is quite a big passion of ours. So we'll try not to go too long on this episode. But I think one thing I've noticed, I do think there's a lot of business owners that don't really like sales, that hate sales, that see it as not something they want to be doing. Why do you think that is?
Not only they don't want to be seen as doing it, but they can't even gather their courage to say that they are actually a salesperson. Because there is like wearing this sticker which says, I'm here to lie to you, to manipulate you, to cheat you. I personally believe that sales is the greatest art you can learn in your lifetime.
I think the problem is there's the perception of, like, if I've been to a number of events and a number of times I've had the kind of someone talk to us and say, what's the first thing you think of when someone says they're a salesperson? And the first thing that does come to your mind are pushy, arrogant. It's just natural that these things. So we almost as business owners, I think we all automatically have this like guard up that if someone says salesperson, it's like, whew, and you know,
Close all the doors,
close all the
windows,
doors.
everything. Yeah.
But
It's like the plague is coming, so
but
shut everything.
I also think that comes down to when you do start a business, there is a pressure on sales, right? I mean, we've said on a number of episodes in the past, like the pressure on us to just get money through the door. And I think then when you think of that, when I started the business, yeah, making sales is the lifeblood of any business. If you don't make sales, you know, you're not going to do anything. You know, you've got to get the work in. Obviously, then it becomes about profitability and all that sort of stuff. But actually, the pressure of making sales, I think, can, if you're not careful, turn you into that those symbols that we just talked about in terms of, you know, pushy and all that sort of stuff, and it becomes very forced. And I think that's probably the challenge that most business owners probably face, certainly in the early days.
I do not believe there is any other place in life other than putting somebody in a submarine and leaving them down there for a couple of years. I don't think there is any other place where pressure really builds you more than sales. Sales is the one place where you have to adapt, you have to think differently, and if you do not grow or quickly learn, you will soon fold.
Yeah.
It definitely isn't a job for everybody. Personally, I'll stress this again, if I could go back again when I was 20 years old or 16 years old, if there is one thing I would learn or be better at, would be sales. And
So-
even today with my kids, if there is one thing I want to leave them with or help them be capable of, is sales. A lot of people are going to disagree with this, and a lot of people will never understand what I mean by this, and it's very unfortunate. But sales is one of these qualities that if you do not master, your potential will always be limited.
How has your attitude or the art of selling for you changed from now as to what it was when you started? As your approach or methodology shifted or changed? Because it certainly has for me, and I can go through that kind of journey in a minute. But I'd be interested to see how your journey
It hasn't just changed or shifted. It's nothing like it used to be. And every year I become better and better at it.
So
I'm
what has
constantly
changed?
adapting. I must admit that when I first started, I did all the wrong things under the sun when it comes to sales. And when I mean wrong, it was really, really wrong, left, right, and center.
What would you
And then
define as wrong?
the way I approached it, what I was trying to sell, when I look at myself 15 years ago to today, I was wrong to even try doing sales. I was wrong to even to try to do sales. I should have read at least 4 or 5 books in sales before I even tried doing the first one. Actually, I would recommend everybody, if you ever, whatever you're doing in life, if it involves sales, either take a few training courses or at least read a minimum of 5 books before you even attempt the first one. It doesn't take long to read 4 to 5 books because you will be a different person from the start and you can build from that onwards. It is very, very sad when I see people today, even when it comes to introducing yourself to somebody, that is a sale. Train, and do as much as there is possible to become better at sales because they are everything. Sales, it's probably the only thing you cannot cheat your way through. You need to be able to sell no matter what happens. You can be crap at everything else and be very good at sales and you will still achieve something. But if you are really weak on sales and really good at everything else, you will never get anywhere.
I guess in business, it's harder when you're a solopreneur. So if you're on your own or it's a small team and you're the salesperson, the delivery person, you know, that's very different. I guess when you're growing a business like we do or are, you know, you have those salespeople where that's their speciality, that's their kind of preferred angle, and then you have the delivery people. I mean, even Jason, my business partner, he is not a salesperson, and we'll joke about that in terms of he's the worst person to put in front of into a sales environment because just everything about it is uncomfortable for him. So for that reason, you know, Jason, stay away from sales because it's not your. But then what he brings to the table in terms of the CTO and the delivery and the technology side, like I'd be terrible at. So it's kind of like find your strengths.
That's perfect. Yeah, that is perfect. If that's what you want to do, let somebody else do
Yeah.
it. Like you are working with him, so there's two people. One has
Yeah.
its own place. He has got his own place, and you've got yours. And yes, that's fine.
And then he always says to me, if I come out of a sale, he'll be like, "You could sell snow to an Eskimo." That's what he says to me. So I always find that. I find that Jason, that's a compliment from him. So, but I think in terms of my approach, and I kind of touched upon it earlier, when I started the business, I just put so much pressure on selling that everything felt transactional. So even the way I spoke to you felt transactional. I wasn't interested in your family. For me, there was no focus outside of you've got to make this sale. And I think that was my biggest failing when I started out in business. But as I've kind of grown and read more books and learnt more along the way, I'd honestly say now my approach to sales has shifted 360 degrees. Like it's the complete opposite. And now my motto is the key to selling is to not sell. And what I mean by that is, for me, the key to selling is to solve problems. So I always remember when I did a sales program a few years ago, it's a very simple diagram. I wish I could draw it here, but someone just drew a picture of a face. So a round head, and they just created massive ears and a tiny mouth. And they pointed and said, that is a salesperson. A salesperson is someone that is there to listen, understand the problems of the person you're in front of, and then support and guide to a solution. And I think for me, that's why I say now the art to sell is to not sell. It's just to listen and be as helpful and resourceful as possible. Because I think 9 times out of 10, that methodology, it all of a sudden is nowhere near transactional. And it's just about how can I help you? What's the problem? How can I help you? And along the way, obviously, once you then listen a lot, the mouth is still there, so you've still got to talk, but it's about asking the right questions. But asking the right questions that drives a solution or an outcome. And I think that's something that's become really prevalent to me over the last few years. And I'd like to say I'm a good salesman, but I think it's very much about, for me, the art to sell is not to sell. It's to solve problems.
That's why I said that being a salesperson is the greatest art on earth. Because first and foremost, you've got to be able to listen. And listening to somebody is very, very, very hard. And that's when I first started, that was my biggest failure. I never even heard what the customer was saying.
Yeah, but you
Because
were
I
still
had
trying
made
to...
I had made my mind up what he needed.
What you think they need. Yeah,
What they
exactly.
needed, yeah, and I was good at it. What he needed. The problem is, I had to get him to tell me what he needed, even though I knew what he needed.
Yeah.
There's a big, big difference between the two. When the customer tells you what he needs, and you sell him that, that's the right sale. When you tell him what he needs, it's very different.
Yeah.
You've got to let the customer tell you what they need.
Yeah.
And the art of listening is probably one of the most difficult things to achieve.
And I think another thing that one of our first business coaches, one of the biggest learnings that I took in a sales environment, when I was in my early days, I really was uncomfortable with silences. So you would almost, like, if there's an ounce of silence, you almost then start overselling or saying something different. And for me, what I learned from our coaches, it was the ability to ask questions, but also the ability to create those silence moments. So ask a question, stop, pause, because often in those moments of silence, the customer will give you the answer. And that was a really good training methodology that I used, and now I still use that to this day, where I'm very comfortable at those kind of awkward silences, because often that's when the client will give you the gold dust. This is my problem, and that's when you can then react, respond, and solve. And I think that's the art of a good sales process. And I also think for me as well, going back from that desperation of the early days, the problem solving for me is not necessarily walking out that door with a sale. If I can walk out that door knowing I've given them a resource or a contact to someone that might be able to help, some sort of value, then for me that's that success.
You have to go in there with the intention to provide some value for the customer, not to simply get a sale.
And if you do that, the sale will come. And almost to me now, that methodology of not selling, the selling now is the byproduct of the methodology that I now use, if that makes sense.
Yep. So to give you an example, I used to walk into a sales meeting with people, had 2 or 3 pages of paper, and spent 5, 10, or 15 minutes explaining to the customer exactly what was involved in the job. It took me a long time to realize that after spending that much time talking to them, the customer had no idea what I was talking about. I was so fixated on the actual small describing the job, into the small details, that I completely forgot the customer never, ever, ever will understand what I was trying to tell him. The truth is, the customer didn't even need to understand that. That's why he was employing me to do the job. On the last sale, to give you an example, which was nearly £200,000 sale, the whole job got agreed without even mentioning anything about the product. The guy simply said, "You're the right person to do the job. We trust and believe that you will do the job right. Let's carry on." I cannot believe it how wrong I got it when I first started. And I cannot believe it how many people still get it wrong every day when it comes to sales. Sales is about creating a relationship where you, first and foremost, give something. Give, important here, give something. You're not there to just take, you have to give. What you give is your trust, who you are, and a bloody good job at the end of it. And I do not care how wrong you get it to start with. I've said this many times before. When someone trusts you with something to deliver a job, I don't care how hard things become along the way, you have to deliver what you have said you would.
And you mentioned about trust there, and I think kind of moving the conversation on a little bit, and this is different for products and service-based businesses, whether that's B2B, B2C, but do you think that, do people just buy products and services now, or do you think they buy the trust of the person behind the product or service?
So there are quite a few types of sales, or it depends on what business you're in. So to give you an example, I and you, the same, are in a relational business. In other words, where we are building relationships with the customers. Then you may have a business which is a transactional business, where you're just selling a few things, or like a shop, for example, where anybody can come in and buy something. But as you grow, or as your business grows, or as you as a person grow and you become more valuable and your business becomes bigger, your biggest point of what's the word I'm looking for? You have to emphasize how valuable you become as a person, because that's what people look for. People will give you a job or trust you to do something based on how you represent yourself and on how they perceive you as a person.
Yeah. What I see about like product-based businesses, I think it's a bit of both. You know, I don't think you need trust in the person behind the brand or the service to make the first purchase. But I do think that person then makes a big difference in terms of retention. So I think in terms of long-standing clients, I think it's after that first purchase, it's about how you can build that trust and you know momentum beyond that. But I think from a service-based business, personally, I think it's very much purely based on the trust and the relationship, and kind of like what you alluded to.
relational
Yeah, and
business,
it's forged on relationships, and I think to the point where, and we've had many episodes around networking and things like that, and I've always said about it's not what you know, it's who you know. But I almost, again, with some of the referrals that I get now from my network, like if a specific individual, for example, let's use you for example. Because of the relationship and the trust that we have, I know for a fact that if you referred me to one of your clients, I'm not going to have to build any trust with them because they know that you wouldn't put them in front of me unless you wholeheartedly trusted me.
You're already 80%
So
in.
that barrier to entry is gone. And I genuinely, I think that level of referral through relationship, like you said, I think 80% of the job's done before you've even spoke to them, because you're in that world where they know that you would only put them in front of that person if you wholeheartedly believe that they will do the best thing for you.
Well, most of the jobs we're doing today in my business are recommendations from somebody else, and they are built mostly on reputation.
Yeah.
Literally, all the jobs we have done, let's say for the past 3 months, have come all from someone who we have already worked with or who has recommended us.
Yeah. Do you know what? I was in a call not long ago, and the first thing they said was, you don't need to prove yourself. I said, you've already proved yourself by so-and-so who introduced you. You can't underestimate the power of that, right? That's the easiest way. It's almost like if you build relationships, you don't have to sell, because the sale's been made before, the hard part of the sale has been made. And I think the hard part of the sale is the building the trust. What's the biggest mistakes that you think that entrepreneurs make when they're trying to sell their business or services? What do you think are the most common mistakes?
The most common one is they're so quick to try and sell you something without introducing themselves first, and even seeing or trying to see if I actually need anything to start with. Talk to people, listen first. Do they even need what they're trying to sell? Try and create a relationship. I want to see who you are. I'm not interested in what you are selling. Because if who you are is the wrong person, whatever it is you're selling will still be wrong, no matter what. Build a relationship. Yeah. Approach it from the point of trying to give and respect, not a transaction, just a transaction. I'm so-and-so, I do this. If you need any of that, let me know. I can go on the internet and find 50 people at the click of a button who do just that.
Yeah, but I also think, and I think one of the key things that people do wrong as well is, and I'll try and give an example, but I think it's when you're talking to someone about the service or product that you offer, and all you're focused on talking to them about is what your product is, what it does, how it does it, but you're not really telling them how it helps them. And I think, again, if you're
not giving anything,
if you flip that mentality, it's kind of like, we've just launched a product, rather than saying we've just launched a product, it does this, this, and this. You could change that whole mentality of, we know that your biggest challenge at the minute is X, Y, Z.
Solve the problem.
Yeah, because of that, we've created this system that can negate this, it can solve this, and it means that you can be far more efficient. So you see the difference in, rather than me say, I've got this amazing product, it is this and this, you put it into their world, understand their business. And that's why I said earlier about asking the right questions. If you ask the right questions, they will then give you the answers to why your product is right for them. And then almost there, you are then, that person then is almost saying, God, I need this. This is going to solve all my problems. So I definitely think there's that mentality shift. And I always laugh because it always reminds me of, I don't know if anyone's watched The Wolf of Wall Street, but on the start of Wolf of Wall Street, he goes around some of his traders and he tells them to sell them this pen.
I love that. I love that moment.
A few of them will explain what this pen looks like. It's silver. It's got a really nice feel. It writes really well, and he just moves on to the next. And then essentially, what happens to the person that gets the right sales tactic or process? He's holding the pen. He's trying to sell it. He asks Leonardo DiCaprio to write something down, and then he says, "Well, can I borrow your pen?" So he gave him something that he needed to solve a problem. And for that reason, he was right, because he needed that pen. He couldn't do the task until he had that pen.
We had the pen, yeah.
So it was supply and demand, right? So make them need something that you offer by asking the right questions, by listening. And I think by doing that, I think you can go a long way.
But also, talking about mistakes, you've got to realize that 70% of the time, that customer may not be the right one for you anyway. So you may be focused so much on the sale without realizing that you're actually talking to the wrong person, even if they need the person, even if they need what you offer. Finding the right people to work with is just as important as being able to sell. And actually, this is where I've become better now, and this is where I realize that a lot of people cannot work with me, and I cannot work with them, even though they need what I offer, simply because we think too differently.
Yeah.
And going back to that scene with the pen, doesn't he talk to the guy who's transporting the money from America to Switzerland? He turns around and says to him, "Sell me this pen." And the guy says, "Hey, are you in the market for a pen?" He says, "No," and just moves away. Identify first if the customer actually needs what you're selling. Don't just go there try and sell something that. Are you in the market to buy a pen? No. There's no point talking to you. Then move on.
I love that film.
We have to review that scene and talk about it again.
I know, but that scene, along with others, is ingrained in my mind. Sorry.
Doesn't he? You've never seen The Wolf of Wall Street?
Oh my God, it's such a good film.
Next time I come here, if you haven't seen that movie, I'm going to lock you here and glue the door shut. Yeah, I'm going to lock you in the fridge. Yeah. In reality, now when I go to see customers to make sales, this is the first thing I focus on, is to see if the guy is suitable to work with me. Because the level I work at is here. Is that guy at that level? It doesn't mean he's bad, he's poor, or anything as such. It simply means he's not at that level yet. What we sell and what we do is 10 out of 10. It is not suitable for everybody, and I accept that now. Before, I used to hate the customer for not seeing what I was trying to give them, without realizing that the guy could not realistically afford to actually buy what I was offering him.
And that comes down to asking the right questions again, isn't it? It's
the right approach. It's when I first started. I started with one van, second-hand van. Today I buy brand new vehicles 2-3 at a time. Now imagine if that same person who sold me the vehicles today came to me 15 years ago and said, "Mike, I've got 3 brand new vehicles to sell to you." What chance on earth did I have to buy these vehicles? Zero. Virtually, he would have wasted his time on this planet trying to sell me them vehicles. I had zero chance of buying it.
Yeah. So how much time did you waste selling to the wrong people?
I'd say 80% of the time.
Really?
Literally 80% of the time.
I think mine would have been a high percentage.
It's really, looking back
almost
now,
to the point where we sent quotes, and the reaction having received the quote was like, not a chance. And now I look back and think, how did I get to a point where I was sending people quotes, not knowing that I was a million miles away? Like, that shows how much of a bad salesperson I was. Because if you listen correctly and ask the right questions, you'll know all that information very quickly.
Listen. Going back to that, listen correctly, ask the right questions. Before, I used to try 30 sales to get 3 maybe, whereas today, I only try 10 and get 4 to 5 of them. So can you see how much work I used to put into it before and how much I do now?
Yeah.
Obviously, I must admit to everybody out there, it was pain that taught me these lessons. It took me at least 4 or 5 years before I started to invest in myself to become better at it.
Yeah.
Now, I really enjoy it because I know once I see you within a few minutes, I can tell if we can work together or not.
Yeah. And
before I even go to my laptop to try and put the quote together, I know if I can work with this guy or not. And I really enjoy telling people, look, are you sure I'm the right person for you? Because what we do is this. Do you want that, or are you looking for something below that?
Yeah. And actually, and the opposite of what you kind of just said in terms of identifying if they're the right customer for you is also like kind of, you just allude to identifying if you're the right partner for them. And to me it's a two-way.
That's where I failed. That's where I failed miserably. I completely failed to identify if I was the right person for them.
And actually, I think that the non-sales mentality that I go into a sales environment is, look guys, it's not just about you picking us, it's about us picking you. So give me a reason to want to work with you.
Make a note of that. It's not about you picking me. It's for both of us picking one another.
For me, it's not a one-way sales environment. It's not a dictatorship. It's look, do we want to work with you and do you want to work with us? And I think if you do the right things along that journey, I think you can come to a common ground where, you know, it's either a resounding yes or it's a look, guys, we don't think we're the right partner for you. And that could just be simply because they haven't got the right budget, or maybe the way that they've spoken to you, the attitude that they've given just doesn't feel like someone that you're comfortable working with. So there's lots of different parameters there, but I always went into a sales environment thinking the only person that's got to make a decision here is the person opposite me. And I've come to realise that actually it works both ways.
You have to make a decision as well if that guy is the right one.
Yeah.
And again, that's where I failed as well, because I was trying to get every job. I want to give you this example, it's an example that really stood with me, and it still stands with me big time. I had a customer phone me and say, Mike, I've heard such and such. You've got my work, but my budget is low. I want you to do me your shittiest job you can possibly do. And the first thing I said to him is, thank you for coming to us. Unfortunately, we do not do shitty jobs.
It doesn't align with your values.
Yeah,
right?
it devalues me. And he says, do not worry. I will not hold it against you. I said, no, I understand what you're saying, but whatever work we do, it will always be our work. Although you own it, it's our work. I cannot even risk someone coming to you, looking at that job, and you telling them that it was us who did it.
Yeah.
So this is where I have to say no.
Yeah.
This is where I have to choose you as much as you have to choose me.
Correct. And we've talked a bit about AI before this episode, actually, so this is quite interesting. But with obviously the prevalence of AI, and we will do another episode on AI in its entirety, but how do you think that's going to affect the sales process or environment? I mean, are you worried about kind of the influence of AI in sales?
Am I worried? No, because I'm going to lean into it. It's part of changing. It's part of adapting. And I can tell you now, those who adapt and lean into it are going to succeed and achieve much better sales numbers than those who don't. You've got to understand, AI is not a choice where you can say, I want it or I don't want it. You've got to work with it. Don't be one of these people who first refused to use internet when it came out because they thought it will soon go away. New technology is there to serve us better, quicker, cheaper. You've got to be part of that game, whether you like it or not. You can't afford to sit on the sidelines because you will lose badly.
No, I agree. And I think, I'm not worried either. I think AI has already and will play a huge part of our sales process in terms of, efficiencies and automation. So if that's automating elements within CRMs to different platforms, or whether it's automating emails or things like that, I think fundamentally AI will play a huge efficiency role in that process. But what I certainly can't see AI ever replacing is at the heart of sales for us, and that's the relationships.
Yep.
And to me, that is a human-to-human, person-to-person relationship. If then beyond that, I can be 90% more efficient through AI tools, then absolutely. But for me, the most important part of our sales and growth journey has and will always be relationship-driven. And I think for me, that's a human-to-human responsibility.
How do you separate sales from manipulation? Because sales, in a way, is manipulating people. Now, hear me out here before everybody jumps off the bridge and becomes judgmental about this. I realized that a good salesperson sales are about one thing: intention. What is your intention? If my intention is to sell you a house that is coated in gold, even though you don't need it, was my intention wrong? Was I manipulating you? You could say, it is my fault for not being smart enough to understand that you do not need a house coated in gold, but that was my intention. Now somebody else builds you a house that on the first day it rains, it starts leaking, the plaster is coming off, the floorboards are squeaky, the foundations are all wrong, but he gave you a price which was much cheaper than mine. Now, whose intentions were wrong here? Mine, selling you a house, coated in gold, which you didn't need it, or the guy who sold you a house, which was done wrong, and he knew what he was going to do?
Yeah, the latter.
The intention is everything behind it. And everybody out there has to learn what the salesperson's intentions are.
What do you think about, because it's interesting you raised that, and I think it's different for a product. Any company selling a product is different because often a product, it does what it does, right? You know,
A product that does
to a
what it
degree.
does, but did you hear on the news lately, we had that scandal about the food and certain, I don't want to mention that food by name, but certain foods there which were supposed to be 85% lamb, and there wasn't even 1% lamb in it.
That's
How about, so you
that's
see,
just,
that sells.
That's just manipulation. That's lying.
That is, you see, what was their intention? To manipulate and to lie for the sake of profits.
But how would you feel about, and I've done this in the past, and I'm sure you've done this in the past as a service-based business, and you know, I've actually read loads of books from very successful people that have said that they've done this. But when you're in a world where someone asks you if you could do something, and how many times have you said you can do it, and afterwards worried about how you're going to do it? So actually, there's many times where someone's asked me, "Can you do this?" And you know, as a salesperson, you're going, "Yes, we can do that. Yeah, we've got the skills to do that." You've not done it before, but then almost like you go away and then work out how to do it afterwards. And I've heard very successful, you know, entrepreneurs and business owners say that, you know, that's things that they've done in the past. But that's a form of manipulation, right? Saying you can do something that you don't quite know you can do. But I guess for me, I've always done it with a positive intent to know that if I say I can do it, come hell or high water, whatever the saying is, I will make sure I do it, even if I lose money.
That is the right intention. You see, that is the right intention.
But there's also an element of manipulation in that as well.
Yeah. Sales are manipulating, Lee. Actually, sales is manipulation. We call it sales because it sounds a bit softer.
But actually,
or more polite. It is manipulation.
But what we're saying
is,
how
are you manipulating the customer towards something that he will benefit from it later on, or are you manipulating him towards something that's going to destroy him? This is the biggest difference I've seen in sales in my industry. I try to manipulate people towards something that's going to serve them for a long time to come.
But it comes along with huge amounts of positive, it's positive intent. Right?
Yeah, positive intent. You know, that is the greatest thing. My manipulative techniques have a positive intent. And like you said, when somebody trusts me, I will do whatever is there, whatever it's possible within my power, even if I lose money, to deliver him the right product.
But in a way, earlier with that pen, I manipulated you because you needed the pen.
That was necessity. I needed one. But if you try to sell me that pen for 100 quid, you might have struggled to convince me to buy it. So sales, you know, your intention is your intention behind every sale is one of the most crucial things. If hand in heart, and if you want to go home and sleep happy and being a salesperson, it all depends on your intention.
Yeah, I like that.
So Lee, when you're trying to make a sale, what is important for you that the customer remembers by the end of the time together?
Yeah, so I think my biggest learning, which I hopefully sums up everything I've said today in terms of the philosophy that I take when selling, it's really simple. It's not what you say, it's how you make them feel. And I think for me, that encapsulates my whole ethos around sales. And that starts from your first communication to delivery. You know, you're not going to be perfect the whole way along, but if you have the right intent and the right mentality, ultimately it's how you make them feel. And if you get that right, you've got a customer for life.
I've had many customers come back to me many, many years after and say, I want you to do the job because you made me feel like you could do it.
Yeah.
A feeling, everything is a feeling.
Yeah.
And also, this is another thing that people forget when dealing with people. Everything is a feeling. And to be good at them feelings, first and foremost, you have to be able to listen. They go hand in hand. You will not be able to make somebody remember you through a feeling if you haven't spent time listening to them, what they have to say in the first place.
Awesome.
Totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, totally. And on that note, we've talked about a lot of sales stuff today. Hopefully, we've imparted some wisdom, but I imagine there's probably questions or comments that you've got on what we've said. So please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment, and we'll carry on the conversation.
And if you have any questions, please send them to us. We would like to discuss them and try and help you as much as possible with them.